Yeah, baby, yeah!
Great photographs can elicit thoughts, feelings, and emotions when words simply will not suffice. In this film, we examine the movements and the iconic names in photography that not only helped pave the way for the great fashion photographers of today, but also continue to challenge the worlds of fashion and photography to construct new ideas of beauty and storytelling. In theory, fashion photography is the same as catalogue photography. But is it selling products or making art?
Well, yeah, the difference between selling clothes and making art, we can invert that. We have to sell art also. So we have to make clothes and sell art at the same time. I believe a good portrait is a nice fashion picture, and a nice fashion picture is essentially a portrait. There's somebody behind the clothes. I think we can easily look at the surface of seeing the designer, seeing the clothes, but there's an attitude behind there, you know, and that's a good portrait image.
For many years, fashion photography was catalogue to sell garments. It was all about retail. It was all about available garments, putting them on a body to see how they're looking on a form, and it was about selling that garment. Fashion photography now has evolved into something that's magical. It is lyrical. It's about the flourish. It tells a story. So the garment somehow becomes secondary, or the garment, it's actually a photographer, a stylist or a fashion director, a model, a makeup artist, an environment.
Well, I think fashion photography can easily be an art as long as actually the vision is there. You know, it really depends on actually priority. Like if a designer is interested in creating art, I think you know, the border between actually fashion and art could be so blurred, and one could declare a photography an art object.
Any shoot that I've been on, the photographer would always try and make it more art, and the stylist would always try and make it more about selling clothes. And it's always that dynamic of, you know, the photographer trying to obstruct things and have movement, and the stylist going, hey, I want to see those shoes and you need to show that belt. So I think for me, it's both. And I think it used to be so much more art, and I think that was the beautiful thing about it.
People like Xavier Valhenrat. So Valhenrat was an art-based photographer in Paris in the 80s. He was picked up by a small-known publication owned by Condé Nast called Les Magazine, where Mario Testino and Bruce Weber and Peter Lindbergh, they all did their first rounds. But Xavier Valhenrat was this art photographer that would take 24 hours to shoot one image. But those images are still in my mind. I remember them because of the detail, of the joy that I received when I saw them first. I still get it. So that's magic. And he sold so many garments for different brands, but that's fashion photography that is that lyrical and that exciting is potent, and you remember it forever.
It's hard for magazines these days because there is so much competition, you know, across social media, and you know, those pictures really need to speak something else.
I think fashion photography is an art form where it is about capturing a moment. There's so many magazines out there, there's even a lot of social media pages out there, and they've got swipeability. And the question that one could ask from way back then to today is what's going to be arresting enough to stop the eye? What's going to stop somebody, make them think a little bit? It's that essential moment. Cartier-Bresson called it the defining moment.
The past century has seen many great fashion photographers. but only an influential handful have been creative enough to have altered the trajectory of the art of photography. At the forefront of the movement was Edward Steichen, whose pioneering work in the early part of the 20th century essentially constructed the creative discipline which photography, for the most part, still adheres to today. The 70s saw Helmut Newton and Guy Bourdin bring their unique brands of sexuality and surrealism to the art form, helping redefine its purpose and push its artistic limits. Many people have posed the question as to what makes a great fashion photographer.
I think you've got to have a faith in your vision, not trying to be someone else, you know. If you believe within your own vision, and then you're determined to actually pursue it as an artist, I think the creativity ideally should be a driven force behind the money, not other way around.
So what makes a great fashion photographer? Interesting question. They also have to know the heartbeat of the time, because it's a mix of modernity and then it's a mix of nostalgia. It's a mix of respect for the form and it's respect for the garments. It's a photographer's kind of, a great photographer, great fashion photographer is someone that finds the sweet spot, finds the balance.
Look, I think it's always those things. It's like the eye, the sense of aesthetic, you know, the technical know-how. But honestly, from a fashion model's perspective, it is actually just the atmosphere you create, the relationship between the model and the photographer. It's so important. It's everything, I think.
That's why 3% of photographers have 95% of the business, because they can work it out, whether it's happenstance, luck, their talent, or all of those things in varying degrees. They're able to transform what they do into a couple of mediums, and one is artwork, and the other one is meeting a deadline and taking arresting pictures and giving themselves an innate style. I think what's missing these days is a lot more of a style in the old, you know, let's call it the old days, the golden era of fashion photography, or the modern golden era of fashion photography. The previously mentioned Bruce Weber's, Mario Testino, Stephen Meisel, everyone had their style, you know, and that's what people banked on. Whereas I think it's a lot more homogenized these days.
I personally think the best photographers can tell a story that I'm finishing it. That's like the best author. The best author puts words on paper, tells you part of the story, but your imagination completes it. For me, the best fashion photographers are those photographers that allow me to put that image into a story that I'm creating, and that's the gratification. I think it's a two-way street. We work together.
The art of a good fashion campaign isn't set in stone. Fashion photography, like art, moves with its leading talents and the prevailing cultural zeitgeist to remain fresh and relevant. To understand them both a little better and see how we arrived at where we are today, we've compiled a collection of some of the most important eras in the evolution of fashion photography over the past 100 years. Edward Steichen, the founding father of modern fashion photography, undertook the task of promoting fashion as fine art via the medium of photography. To do this, he curated a series of photographs of the gowns by the renowned French designer Paul Poiret, which were published in the 1911 April issue of Art et Décoration magazine. Considered the very first modern fashion photographs, they emulated the aesthetics, movement, and details of his clothes. His style was model-centric, capturing models in typical portraiture style with meticulous use of lighting. The result showcased lavish and elegant pieces that were indicative of their time.
Yeah, the origins of fashion photography was, it's acknowledged that it was Edward Steichen, but he did the first, in a way, studio photography as one to set up a fashion picture with studio lighting. Previous to that, there was a guy called Baron de Meyer, who was the first person to, instigate a model, fashion clothes, a camera, put them all together and start, the propaganda that we know today of fashion photography.
In 1909, when the successful publisher Condé Nast purchased American lifestyle magazine Vogue, creating the world's premier fashion publication, Nast gave photographers such as Steichen and Cecil Beaton a platform to showcase their work to a huge new audience. The follow-up launch of Vanity Fair in 1913 saw both brands battling Harper's Bazaar to become the top fashion magazine in America. Steichen and Vogue ultimately mapped the blueprints for almost all fashion advertising that was to come in the years after.
When I was young, all I wanted was to connect with the visual medium. And the visual medium in fashion magazines at that point, it blew my mind. It became just part of my culture. My culture was then to go to school and go to these newsagents, find the magazine that would speak to me, and I became a collector. So I was completely in love with early Italian Vogue. I was completely in love with the Face magazine, Blitz magazine, Interview magazine.
I just got rid of like 20 boxes of magazines recently because I was moving and I just had nowhere to put them, and now I'm so sorry. Now I'm like, what have you done? That was about like a 15-year history of Vanity Fair, British Vogue, all the greats, and I just got rid of it, and now I'm like, oh, that was a dumb move.
It's extraordinary. We forget that Vogue is over 100 years old. It's actually quite extraordinary. They still keep fresh, modern. We consider it part of the modern world, but 100 years ago, things were very, very different. We're in horse and buggies, pretty much. So for a brand like that to survive is saying one thing, but it has to survive on the back of an industry. And that has been tapped into with a lot of the young designers looking back. If you look at a Ferragamo shoe from the 20s, it actually looks 80s. But we sort of forget that in our generation.
For many years, Harper's Bazaar lacked the edge it needed to compete with the Condé Nast publications. However, the magazine's fortunes changed in 1934, when the photographer Alexei Brodovich was appointed as the artistic director. Harper's Bazaar started down a new path that would change the landscape of fashion photography forever. Brodovich implemented radical layout concepts through typography and vivid imagery. It was his fusion of elegance and innovation that transformed the fortunes of Harper's Bazaar, securing its long-term future. Brodovich also started a course at the Pennsylvania Museum School of Industrial Art in 1933, called the Design Laboratory, where he taught the full spectrum of modern graphic design principles, contributing to his long-living legacy.
Alexei Brodovich started a revolution, and behind every great photographer, there's a great brief. And I think it was Alexei Brodovich who said in French, "Étonnez-moi," astonish me. That was his initial brief to them, which, any good photographer worth his salt, they actually should be sportsmen because they're very competitive.
Richard Avedon, one of Brodovich's early students at the Design Laboratory, began his career in 1944 as an advertising photographer. Avedon was sent to Paris by Brodovich in 1946 to cover the latest collections from the premier fashion houses. Young and vibrant, the images Avedon captured for Harper's Bazaar represented a new direction for fashion photography.
Richard Avedon's book, when I was a young boy, and I feel so bad that I'm saying this, it's the first book I ever stole. I love Richard Avedon.
Well, Richard Avedon is a favourite. He's a master. He influenced and will continue to influence generations of photographers. His photographs are so light and airy of the moment. They're also of today, and I think that's his mastery.
When I first started getting really interested in photography and I started looking at Avedon's pictures, to me they seemed so beautiful and so classic and so technically amazing. His usage of movement, his usage of models of color. It was all so new for that time. It was all so, and he didn't care, he didn't care. He just did what he wanted to do, and he kept trying until he got to where he was, and I love that about him.
He preferred to work outdoors or on location, capturing lively street scenes and bustling parties. His models were photographed candidly, showcasing their natural femininity. The clothes they adorned seemed somehow to be an elegant extension of their own bodies.
From what I've heard, he connected very well with his subjects. He would act out the roles themselves.
A lot of his counterparts, a lot of his, people that coexisted, like the late Cecil Beaton or Bailey in London, they were doing things differently. Bailey was really raw and rambunctious and crazy, and Cecil Beaton was very metered and really genteel, whereas Avedon, his images speak to us. His images present the humanity of that person, which I love.
I can't divide fashion from the way we live. We don't just have teenage girls leaning over pianos with their backsides up. We all dress. We all want to dress well. We're good people. And I thought, why can't I merge everything I feel socially, what I feel about a little bit about the way we live, into a fashion story? But there was no magazine that was interested in it.
I think being the guy that really brought humanity in portraiture, brought the simplistic notion of just stripping back an environment and allowing the human to come out of the images. He presented really well-known, brilliant people, but in a way that we've never seen them before. So I think he sort of extracted the soul and presented it to us. Now, as a photographer, I kind of saw that it wasn't just one photograph that he did, but a whole body of work which will last through the ages.
Avedon's move to shoot his models candidly was a real turning point for fashion photography. Those such as David Bailey used this candid style extensively to capture the new and exciting times of swinging London in the 60s.
David Bailey was a really interesting cat. He was a good photographer, still is, but he wasn't great. And there's a great story that an editor, he went to see British Vogue, and he rocked in 20-year-old shaggy hair, beard, and the editor recalls not really looking at his portfolio. He just sort of rocked in, and he had these Cuban heels, these cowboy boots, Cuban heels, and she was fascinated by this character who had the audacity to walk in with Cuban heels and hide him. So of course he had a lot of, talent, charisma, and a lot of connections. Yeah, I just love that story that sometimes it's about what you wear and the charisma and the personality.
Bailey's photography for British Vogue added to the Avedon's ideas by giving them an even more youthful energy, while his carefree approach linked models, setting and lifestyle like never before.
Everyone gets lumbered with a label, I bet Michelangelo thought, shit, not another ceiling. It was difficult to be creative in those days, and the only way to be creative, really, in the sense of, I hate that word, art, but the only way to be creative was in fashion photography, really. I mean, I think they're pretty good pictures. I think they look better now than they did then, in a way, because I was groping around to find a way to go then.
Yeah, I do believe that David Bailey was the first sort of rock star photographer. He was a product of his era, but I don't know if he overstepped the mark too many times either, compared to some other people within the industry, especially what we're talking about today, that are getting into lots of trouble.
The swinging 60s was probably kind of the beginning of that, celebrity photographer. It was like, these photographers are celebrities in themselves, and everybody wanted to hang out with them. Women wanted to be with them, and everybody wanted to be in front of their lens. But they were also exciting, and they were also pushing their own boundaries, and they were also that was the beginning of the photographer that that sort of goes, hey, you know what, I'm going over here and I'm shooting this story and then you're going to publish it.
People say, how can you photograph Ron Cray? I'd photograph Hitler. I'd photograph Stalin. I mean, I have to take pictures. I'm not interested in, you know, I might think they're awful, but I can't make any judgment. If you're a photographer, like, you know, sometimes editors say, he's really arrogant, can you make him look arrogant? Or she's really stuck up, can you make... I say, no, I'll take the pictures of them as they are. I won't do a journalistic picture of somebody.
The pose I saw, the one with Mick Jagger with the coat,
Yeah.
I'm sure I saw Liam Gallagher being photographed like that from Oasis, wearing that same kind of coat and that same kind of look.
Yeah, that's all right.
So people kind of borrow
Oh yeah,
all the
that's
time,
great.
don't
They should borrow. They shouldn't borrow, they should steal. They should steal. If they borrow, it's probably going to be weak. And if they copy, it's going to be weak. But if they steal it and make it their own, I got nothing against people stealing things. Avedon, Penn, Bill Brandt, Cartier-Bresson, Uncle Tom Cobley, that glass, everything is an influence. I mean, and if you don't steal everything, you can never do it. I mean, people who think they can just be original, you can't.
By the 70s, a resurgence in studio work was well underway, taking direction from photographers such as Steichen, Beaton and Penn. This movement was defined by its exploration of female nudity, overt sexuality and surrealism. Having signed a deal to transfer from Harper's Bazaar to Vogue in 1966, Avedon decided to return to the studio for much of his fashion photography work. Referencing the glamour and freedom of the previous 20 years, his shoots for Versace through the 70s and 80s were inventive and exciting. His trademark use of movement was still present, as was his celebration of vitality and confident female sexuality.
Well, the 70s were a fascinating era in fashion photography. It was when the 60s came of age. And sure, we still had the 50s, 60s photographers, the Avedons, the Evan Penn, people like that. But then these two guys came out of the pack, Helmut Newton and Guy Bourdin.
I mean, Helmut Newton and Guy Bourdin are two of my favourite photographers. Helmut Newton for the fact that he was able to present these really dirty, really covert, really underground, subversive images or scenes, and then he would translate them through the eye of this magical purveyor. I remember his Le smoking jacket in the street of Paris that would have ordinarily just been this just dirty dive, and he had the model wearing a Yves Saint Laurent smoking jacket, holding a cigarette. And it's like one of the most iconic images of the 70s. Like, to be able to show us this dirty underside of life, the grit, but just make it look just so heroic and beautiful. Like, that's a master.
We forget that Helmut Newton spent 18 years in Australia. He married an Australian woman whose pseudonym is Alice Springs, who's a great photographer in her own right. And there's something to be said about Australian light. It's very harsh, sharp, and you really need to know what you're doing. So he had mastered lighting and had that harsh element, but he also had a Germanic background. So it was very brutal and honest. And then he just coated it with really great, sophisticated fashion. There's a lesser known person who was just as talented, and they were rivals at the time, Guy Bourdin. And they really pushed each other as rivals, but with similar styles, and pushed the quote-unquote sort of sex element into films.
Bourdin's critics posit that his style was completely reductive of the female form, presenting it in an exclusively erotic light, which in turn promoted misogynistic views of women. These portrayals would even become violent, as some of his photographs depicted dead and dismembered women. His advertising work in the late 70s often portrayed women as submissive, a strict counterpoint to works by contemporaries like Helmut Newton and Avedon. However, his imagery is undeniably captivating, and the use of bright colour, staged surrealism, and sex has influenced the work of many modern fashion photographers.
Guy Bourdin, just this eye, this taste level, this talent to just high key gloss imagery that's human form becoming more like art, sculptural, in a way that was very, very sexual, and really, like, the protagonist was the female. The protagonist was these incredible women, and they owned the imagery, even though he was a bit misunderstood at that time, I just know, because he was also shooting campaigns. And he was shooting campaigns that, like, they'd say, no, you've got to reshoot. No, you have to reshoot. I just remember reading his biography, and he was like, I've had to reshoot campaigns 5 times, and they asked me why, and he said, well, everyone's naked.
You know, it was a very small community in those days. Everyone was connected, and I think they all sort of worked through that, asking questions about sexuality, putting them on film for the first time.
And so, like, he couldn't, like, he was just about this manifesting these amazing dreamlike environments in this beautiful, structured, amazing way. Yeah, I love Gib Woodell.
The 1980s also saw the rise of the supermodel phenomenon. Now much more than amazing fashion models, these girls elevated posing to an all-new pantheon of global stardom and recognition. Kate Moss, Cindy Crawford, Christy Turlington, Claudia Schiffer, Naomi Campbell, Giselle, all became icons, changing the luxury fashion scene forever.
They were superstars. It wasn't just them. It was the machinations of the industry at that time, like Joan Crawford. There was a studio behind her that developed and created and pushed her to the stratosphere. It felt exactly like that with Christy Turlington and Linda Evangelista, even Naomi Campbell, in those early years when they were just fantastic.
And when that George Michael Freedom song came on, it was just like, I just remember going, oh my God, I want to be her, and I want to be her, and oh my God, how can these women exist? They're so beautiful and so powerful and so sexy, and that's okay, you know? It was almost like, it's okay to be strong and powerful and sexy in a woman, you know? It was incredible. It was such an incredible video. Changed everything for me.
Sure, I remember actually how glamorous they were. It's just a different feel from what we see nowadays in the year 2019. The models are actually highly made up, that as if they were actually a 1940s old icon in Hollywood.
I think you could find 100 great-looking girls, but these girls worked well. They knew how to be in front of the camera. Working with Giselle, you've got 50 pictures in one roll. You know, the way that they manipulate their bodies, how they make a dress work, how they give you almost an extra vertebrae standing up taller and bigger than anyone else.
We flew Claudia Schiffer to Australia. We had an exclusive with her. We shot her for a campaign for Q Design, and we had her on sides of buses. But just the idea that we had Claudia Schiffer exclusive to us during the time that she just shot the supermodel cover for British Vogue. It was like we were holding the crown jewels, and everybody treated her like she was the queen. But she was a girl. She was like a 21-year-old great chick. And I don't think she even bought into how impossibly brilliant her career was, because it just kept going and going.
I think there are images that are taken by David Sims' Face magazines or IDs. I think that was very modern then, really. Actually, just a reaction of glamour, reaction of old fashioned glamour from like 40s and 50s, that sort of look, I think about Kate Moss, Corny Days, the photographer Kate Moss collaboration for IDs, and it was really fresh. And you know, you feel as if actually you're seeing something that you shouldn't be seeing, like it shouldn't be there in the magazines.
You know, I started modeling when the grunge era started coming up, and for me that was in a lot of ways, you know, an opening, because I wasn't a glamazon. I was this kid with no boobs and I was really skinny, and you know, when I started modeling, that look was in, and I was like, oh wow, so now I'm accepted, so now I can do this.
With fashion trends, photography trends, film trends, there's also model trends. So from Supermodels was the antithesis of Supermodels. There was gammon and waif.
And that era was incredible too, because, you know, sure it was grunge and, you know, it was all that stuff, but there was a lot of, you know, the Supermodels were still working, and the editorials from that time, you know, with like Shalom Harlow and Kate Moss and, you know, Amber Valletta, like they were very edgy, but they're also really beautiful, you know? I think it was that fine line between heroin chic and just really beautiful. And I love that about the 90s. I love that in the 90s you could have that kind of really beautiful, clean-cut simplicity, but then have the kind of the really grungy, attitude-y stuff.
The 80s were the start of a brave new world for fashion photography as commercialism suddenly reared its head. Fashion was starting to carry more importance among Europe and America's burgeoning middle class as they took more of an interest in what they wore. A standout campaign for Calvin Klein jeans from 1981, featuring a 15-year-old Brooke Shields, saw Shields proudly declare,
"You want to know what comes between me and my Calvins? Nothing."
Almost overnight, it made Calvin Klein jeans a highly desired product. The 90s were seen by many as the golden age of the fashion ad campaign, as it portrayed strong female role models with the likes of Donna Karan, as well as striking ads for DKNY and Ralph Lauren. Labels used a combination of sex and supermodels as the foundations of their campaigns, drawing a link between the model's natural beauty and the products being advertised. Calvin Klein, of course, was at the forefront of this movement.
Calvin Klein is a master marketer, and he ended up using a beautiful campaign for obsession with the then young 16-year-old, 17-year-old Kate Moss with her boyfriend Mario Sorrenti. And the intimacy that they had, you know, the camera doesn't lie. Those series will go down as some of the best campaigns. So it's Kate Moss on a couch, black and white photography, superb.
Success was seen in Calvin Klein's iconic campaign featuring Mark Wahlberg and Kate Moss. The pair topless as they posed in their Calvin Klein underwear and jeans. The black and white shoot by Bruce Weber captured the new direction of the company, minimal yet direct.
He was on the cover of Rolling Stone wearing my jeans and underwear, and his body was perfection. The images are still valid. They're still hot, they're still sexy, they still say something. The photography is wonderful. Nothing happened by accident. There was a strategy behind everything that we've done.
So then you have Calvin Klein, who became kind of like the anti-hero with those images, and he had Marky Mark and Kate Moss, and he kind of supported this isolated teenage angst, stripped of everything.
I mean, the CK1 campaign, when that came out, it changed how I viewed myself as a woman, as a person. It was everything to me as a kid. Like, I mean, I was a teenager and I was like, oh my God, I remember like buying 3 separate magazines just so I could see that CK1 campaign in its full entire fold out.
And then you flip to the next double page and it was Ralph Lauren, and it was country estates, and there'd be a brood of 50 super wealthy, amazing people with like boats and yachts and this, and it was, these mega brands really spoke. They spoke to the soul of the United States and sort of globally.
It was so freeing to be seen, you know? You were seen all of a sudden by this big market. But, you know, even Herb Ritz for Donna Karan, you know, the beautiful back and the nudity, it all started becoming so much more sexualized, you know.
2000s, Tom, Testino and Terry. As mankind has thoroughly established over the decades, sex sells. Sex appeal in the 70s is drastically different to its modern perceptions. The new age of hypersexuality in advertising is twofold. Its purpose is to create a shock factor, attracting attention whilst also selling the product. Tom Ford is notorious for using this form of advertising to sell his products.
So now we're in the 2000s, Tom Ford's arrived, and he made himself well known with coming in and doing something extraordinary for Gucci. Now, Tom Ford knows everyone else's job better than they do. He is a true master, and now evidenced in a couple of different genres. He's also directing.
When you get into the 2000s, when the Italian brands, the European brands are looking at these blueprints and saying this is a successful formula, Tom Ford moving to Gucci could almost be one of the greatest, most brilliant moves in fashion history.
The iconic campaign for his first fragrance, For Men, shot by Terry Richardson in 2007, included almost graphic sexual imagery.
Terry Richardson spawned millions of Terry Richardson-esque photographers and styles because of his rawness. Like the idea of having a ring flash on a camera and taking a photograph that actually looks like it could be a forensic photo of a death scene, but then you spin it to a girl in a cubicle and she's wearing a cool t-shirt and you take a photo of her. It's got that grit, that dirt to it that so many photographers since then have used as their reference point.
Terry, I've shot with Terry. I shot with him for Japanese Vogue, and the story itself was so incredible. I mean, it was a story on it was models dressed as kids in kids' bedrooms. So each girl had her own set and was dressed like a sexy young girl in a kid's bed. And that was fine then. Like, how was that fine then? I knew Terry, so I knew him personally, and also my boyfriend at the time used to work in a studio that printed his photos. So it was very exciting seeing what happens after his shoots.
I'm actually surprised at all the furor that's happened around him, because he clearly stated way back then that he's shooting porn, if not soft porn, if not porn, it's soft porn images. So you were clearly getting what you got with those images. They were brutal, pretty harsh.
First of all, you're flipping through a magazine. You're selling a men's fragrance. Now, where are you going to put it that a man is going to look at it and notice? Between a woman's breast or between her legs. I also did that one. But there was a gay version with the bottle between a man's ass, which only ran in a few publications. But again, who's your market? What do they want to see? Put the product there. Why not? And maybe this is one of those things that one struggles with. All of us in the fashion industry objectify men and women. We're using the human form to sell products. And so, yes, a lot of times we are creating something that is, in real life, unattainable. Yet it also is there to make you dream. It isn't necessarily meant to be taken literally. It is a kind of representation of an idyllic, a marble statue, for example, doesn't necessarily look like the sitter. It's perfect. The marble is perfect. Everything. It's an impressionistic view, and as a fashion designer, you create that sort of dream world where things are perfect. That is the kind of ideal dream world. And I think it's important with fashion to be a little irreverent. It's supposed to be fun.
Another campaign from the Tom Ford stable was released in 2003, whilst the designer was working for Gucci. Stylized and simplistic, this ad shot by Mario Testino garnered a lot of attention as it featured a female model with the Gucci G shaved into her pubic hair. It was a bold move for Ford, but one that once again proved the old adage, that there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Mara Testino, you know, in reference to Tom Ford and in reference to so many other images, I recall Mara Testino in 1982 when he shot his first campaigns for Lay magazine and Pedalui magazine, and I pulled them all out and collected them. And we tried to work with Mara Testino years later for Vogue in Australia, and it was at that time that he just shot all the Tom Ford, and then his day rate went from 0 to untouchable. He was like the Beyonce of photography at that time.
Mara Testino, who previously mentioned, was very infectious, and everything was, you know, he's South American, so there's a happiness, there's a gayness to his pictures, the colour, there's a lot of energy. There's always going to be room for Mara Testino. His clean, beautiful, honest imagery, you know, that was really kind of the tempo of the time. He really kind of owned the 2000s. It was his.
I have to say, an instant that occurs in 1,000th of a second and doesn't repeat itself a minute 999 before or after, it's quite magical if you capture that moment. I don't know if it happens to you. Sometimes you go down the street and you see something, and I mean, I'm a photographer, so I wish I had my camera, but maybe you will tell your friend, look, 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 and a second afterwards, it's gone. I find it quite magical to capture those moments because those are the magical moments in life. So that's what I try to recreate in my work.
Not averse to using sexual imagery in his advertising, in the 2000s, photographer Jürgen Teller allowed Marc Jacobs' promotional campaigns to stand out amongst the highly stylized shoots other brands were doing. The iconic 2003 shoot featuring Hollywood actress Winona Ryder caused a buzz, as she had recently been arrested for shoplifting a Marc Jacobs dress from a Beverly Hills department store. Opportunistically, Jacobs hired her, knowing it would attract media attention, and the now infamous photo shoot remains a trademark on his irreverent take on design with a devil-may-care attitude. The 1992 Calvin Klein Mark Wahlberg campaign propelled the trend of celebrity endorsement. Strong vocal women have been popularized as faces of brands like Miley Cyrus for Marc Jacobs, Lady Gaga for Versace, and Lindsay Lohan for Miu Miu have all followed in the footsteps of Winona Ryder.
With the post-supermodel era came the arrival of the mega celebrity. The celebrity that crossed over into fashion and back again. Anna Wintour started that whole push with, she sort of saw that pendulum swinging this way and put a lot of celebrities on the covers, and there became that cross-pollinization of celebrity as fashion model and vice versa.
I remember getting quite a bit of criticism for my first Madonna cover, and that, you know, she's not Vogue, she'll never sell, and you know, it was a little bit risky, and you know, it was up something extraordinary like 40% on the newsstand. So that was an eye-opener, I think, to all of us.
But you knew something, or you followed
I didn't know anything.
You followed an instinct.
I never pay any attention. I'm sure it's not such a good way to be, but I don't really follow market research, and I in the end, I do respond to my own instincts. Sometimes they're successful, and obviously sometimes they're not. But you have to, I think, remain true to what you believe in.
Super celebrity is the supermodel of the moving forward 21st century. When we have the publications that still exist, and I still love buying magazines, the covers are celebrities. So when the covers would be, if there was a unique celebrity, they'd use that celebrity once for a cover of a magazine. Now, rarely are they models. So I think we're changing, we're evolving, we're also morphing into a world that when there's so much fast fashion and so many people that can pick up a phone and take a photograph, and so they're shooting campaigns, we don't necessarily need a model to look very different to us.
The biggest shift in the way fashion photography is consumed lies with social media, particularly Instagram. Between 2006 and 2013, The amount of pages dedicated per year to advertising in Vogue fell by 16%. It's clear fashion marketers have adopted a new strategy which centres around the idea that content today is created in order to be shared, liked and retweeted, rather than gazed over in a glossy magazine.
A lot of things have changed in recent times. We are looking at our phones instead of portfolios. So people need to make faster decisions. And I've been in meetings occasionally where we'll talk about using a model or a stylist, and everyone will just grab their phone and start flicking through it, and we've pretty much made the decision on a very small image.
To understand the business metrics of model influencers, all one needs to do is follow the numbers. American Vogue may sell a couple of million copies, which sounds like a lot, but not when you compare model influencer Kendall Jenner, who has 108 million follows on Instagram alone. And every one of her posts can get tens of millions of engagements.
I think social media and Instagram has impacted the fashion photography and fashion business in a way that we are now sort of almost trying to fit in to that aesthetic. You know, you see brands like, you know, Balenciaga trying to do, well, not trying, doing campaigns that look like badly lit phone photos, you know? So there is a push for that kind of normcore in the way that photos are taken and the way that, you know, the paparazzi shots and how it's perceived by the audience. But to be honest with you, I don't know where else it can go.
I just enjoy seeing it as an audience, you know. Fashion being, well, nature of fashion being actually changeable. And then also there is also the trend that comes and goes season by season. And Instagram is a perfect platform for that nature. Because if you don't like it, you can delete it.
Lucky Blue, with his 3 million Instagram followers, triple A-list clients and celebrity friends, could well be the poster boy of the Instagram age.
So Lucky Blue has around 3 million followers. Not only 3 million followers, but 3 million of his demographic. So that counts for something quite extraordinary. It's not just a set of eyes, it's a set of eyes specific to that brand and to that sort of demographic.
Lucky started modelling at age 12, where he appeared in Vogue Homme Japan. He has modelled for Tom Ford, H&M, Calvin Klein, L'Oreal, Philippe Plein, Subi, Balmain, Emporio Armani, Bottega Veneta, D-Squared, Fendi, Ralph Lauren, Roberto Cavalli, Versace, Salvatore Ferragamo and Tommy Hilfiger.
I think people think about, what is my investment? My investment is this, and my return needs to be this. If I invest in a no-name photographer and a no-name model, it just might backfire.
Look, I think it makes sense because for advertisers, it's a money no-brainer. So it's important for them to have models that have a high social following because it just translates into dollars. But for me, as somebody who's also a stylist and I book models and jobs, it's not as important to me, to be honest, because I love actually discovering girls that I think are beautiful and no one else has noticed yet, you know? I shot this girl last year and, you know, she really didn't have much in her book at all. But I could just see that she was so beautiful and I could see that we could make her look incredible. And we did, and now she's doing Louis Vuitton, you know? Like, I think that's the beauty of it, that I think a lot of people miss, you know, when they go into the social media.
One of the latest phenomenons is the rise of the big budget fashion film, and it seems that the big luxury houses are jumping into the fray. Chanel and Baz Luhrmann, the legend of Thomas Burberry, Wes Anderson for Prada, and the list goes on and on. Even lowly workwear brand Carhartt has a mega budget film with Jason Momoa, Canvas of My Life. All clearly designed to entertain and delight first, be shared second, and sell a very long third.
And there will come a day when I will be gone, And my children, or my grandchildren, they will find these beat up old Carhartts in a dusty corner somewhere. And they will know this is the canvas of my life.
Such a big fan of the longevity of the big budget fashion film, the film that speaks to us as consumers in long form. I think from being so exposed to fast, quick, flash, click, like swiping, sitting back and really immersing ourselves in a fashion film that speaks to us and tantalizes us differently. That's definitely something that I think is not a trend. I think it's definitely something, it's a shift for us. I think it's a shift in the way that we perceive fashion.
I think it's probably true that the nature of directing is the nature of controlling at least a little part of the world. I actually create an environment where I hope actors can flourish. I see it as my job to create an environment where they can play. Giselle, in her own DNA, comes from a new world sensibility. And I think that's both fresh, but very true to Coco Chanel. Coco brought the new era to the old world. She was the one who smashed the convention.
Whether you're a director or a restaurateur, you're essentially a creative director, and you run the brand that way. And people are now recognizing that filmmakers are designing hotels or restaurants. The rise of the fashion film has been snagged in there somewhere where we now have got a lot more to say about a brand in different formats. So I think it's kind of interesting, and I think we'll see more of that happening in different mediums. So that's the new Wild West, I believe.
Oh, I think they're great. I love big budget fashion films. Like, I think they're so fun. I think Baz Luhrmann's got his own thing, and that film was so beautiful and like very dreamy, and it's very much his thing. I really love the Wes Anderson for Prada. That was fun, and I like that. I think that brands should definitely start doing that, and I think in the future that's what our advertising is going to be like.
With those fashion films, it's not just the film. They also have the outtakes, they have the stills, they have the Insta stories, they have the stories of the making. They start to speak to every single person involved. What is their take? So it's like 50 sub-stories that can then extend. I think gone are the days of just shooting something for the sake of shooting it and then hoping for the best with that single amount of content. Now it's covering it from all angles.
Where to from here for fashion photography as we know it, I believe, has come to a fork in the road. And I think it'll separate into more of a fine art thing or more of a very sophisticated catalogue. I think the dawn of American fashion or world fashion, Anna Wintour had it right. Essentially, a good fashion photograph, you could see the clothes, you could see the stitching, and you can sell the clothes. And I think there'll be a lot more onus on that. And then the art or the flagship of the brand itself may be something a little bit more abstract.
The nuances of current fashion photography is suggesting to me that this sort of veritas, this real person, and to make it exciting and different, is putting that real person in an environment that's different, this juxtaposition. That is going to be a major shift, pulling people away from that slower story narrative and I firmly believe that we're going to use more of our own narrative within the stories again. I think we are going to be part of that.
Modern day photography, I think it was Francis Ford Coppola who 20 years ago said the next director may be coming out of the middle of America and he may have a small video camera. Well, he was half right. You know, most photographers are everywhere. We're shooting things on our phone, which are extraordinary tools at the moment.
Once the shining beacons of the fashion industry, today fashion magazines have been usurped by relatively new digital apps and channels of social media, as well as fashion films created by high-profile directors. The merging of fashion with digital and visual media brings down the barriers that once stood. This accessibility allows those who would not usually dabble in high fashion to potentially become paying clients, as campaigns have a larger outreach than ever before. Just as ancient hieroglyphs gave way to the written word, things have always changed. Gutenberg's printing press democratized knowledge with the spreading of books. Electricity provided the possibility of broadcasting. The internet and connected personal devices provided the many platforms for the new digital media titans that abound today. What is certain is that whatever rules the roost today will inevitably soon be replaced by what comes next.
So fashion photography, if it gets to virtual reality, if it changes to AI, if it becomes something that talks about multi-universes, all of that, all of this conversation that's happening, this underground swell of conversation about the future.
Like, we're going to have virtual reality. I think even, you know, sense of smell is going to come in. We're going to be able to smell the ads. Yeah, I mean, technology, who knows? You know, like, it's going to happen, and it's happening so fast that it's like in 20 years, we're going to be in a different world.
I think the best way to do it in photography, I think the best analogy would be this displaced character within an environment.
And I believe that's what we're going to be seeing. Things like that, artworks and catalogue.
Good job, Nick. That's a wrap.